Ladies and gentlemen, life has a way of making us believe that we have to carry everything on our own shoulders. From the moment we wake up, we're bombarded with responsibilities, decisions, and expectations. The world tells us that if we want to succeed, we have to hustle, grind, push, and struggle our way to the top. It tells us that success is about how much effort we put in, how much we sacrifice, and how much we can endure before we finally break through. But what if that's not the way it's supposed to be? What if the reason we're exhausted, overwhelmed, and constantly battling stress is because we're trying to do something we were never meant to do alone? We live in a culture that glorifies independence. We are told to be self-made, to take pride in doing everything without help, and to push through even when we're drowning. There's a voice inside so many of us that says asking for help is a weakness, that surrendering control means giving up, and that struggling is just a necessary part of life. But what if struggling alone is actually the problem? What if the reason we feel stuck is because we're holding on to something we were never meant to carry? Imagine a child trying to tie their own shoes for the first time. They fumble, they twist the laces the wrong way, and they get frustrated. But instead of asking for help, they stubbornly insist on doing it themselves. They pull harder, get the knot even tighter, and eventually they start to cry because they've made such a mess of it. The parent, watching nearby, wants to step in and help, but they know the child has to first be willing to receive help. This is exactly how we often live our lives. We insist on doing things our way. We push, we force, we struggle, and when things don't go the way we want, we get frustrated, disappointed, and even angry. We question why things aren't working out, why doors aren't opening, and why we feel stuck in a never-ending cycle of stress and exhaustion. But the truth is, we were never meant to do this alone. We were never created to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. We were never supposed to be the sole architects of our own success. Surrendering doesn't mean giving up. It doesn't mean sitting back and doing nothing. It doesn't mean laziness or passivity. Surrender is about shifting our mindset from, I have to do this all on my own, to, I trust that there is a greater power leading my steps. It's about recognizing that no matter how hard we try, we will always have limitations. But God does not. It's about letting go of the need to control every outcome and instead allowing divine wisdom to lead the way. We often confuse struggle with progress. We think that if something is hard, it must mean we are growing. And while challenges do refine us, unnecessary struggle can actually drain us. Think about swimming against a powerful current. The more you fight it, the more exhausted you become. But if you stop struggling and allow yourself to be carried by the current, you start to move in the direction you were meant to go. When we surrender, we step into alignment with a flow greater than ourselves. We begin to understand that life is not about forcing things to happen, but about positioning ourselves to receive what has already been prepared for us. We stop trying to manipulate situations and instead trust that the right doors will open at the right time. We let go of the fear that if we don't push hard enough, we'll fail, and instead we develop faith that there is a divine plan unfolding even when we can't see it. How many times have we prayed for something, only to get frustrated when it doesn't happen immediately? We assume that if God doesn't answer in our timing, then he must not be listening. But just because something isn't happening the way we want it to, doesn't mean it's not happening at all. Sometimes the greatest blessings come in the form of delays, redirections, and even closed doors. What we see as rejection is often protection. What we see as a setback is often a setup for something greater. Surrender requires trust, and trust requires relationship. It's hard to trust someone you don't spend time with. That's why surrendering to God isn't just about letting go, it's about drawing closer. The more we align ourselves with divine wisdom, the more we begin to recognize when we're pushing in the wrong direction. We start to develop discernment between what is meant for us and what is simply a distraction. We start to understand that not every opportunity is a blessing, and not every delay is a curse. Think about a GPS system. When you enter a destination, the GPS calculates the best route to get you there. If you take a wrong turn, it doesn't yell at you or tell you to give up. It simply recalculates and finds another way. This is how divine guidance works. Even when we take detours, make mistakes, or end up on the wrong path, faith is often misunderstood as a passive belief, something we hold on to in the background while we continue to work tirelessly, push endlessly, and force things to happen in our lives. We say we trust God, yet we act as if everything depends on our own efforts. We make plans, set goals, and push forward with a relentless determination to make things work exactly how we envision them. But what happens when our plans don't unfold the way we expect? What happens when all the effort we put in still doesn't bring the results we hoped for? We get frustrated, we doubt, and we exhaust ourselves trying to fix things that were never ours to control in the first place. The idea that we must force our way through life is one of the biggest misconceptions that keeps us in a constant state of stress and struggle. We believe that if we just work harder, push more, or find the right strategy, we can make things happen on our terms. And yet we often find ourselves burnt out, anxious, and feeling like no matter what we do, it's never enough. That's because life isn't meant to be about force. It's meant to be about faith. When we operate from a place of force, we rely entirely on our own strength, our own wisdom, and our own limited perspective. But faith invites us to trust in something greater than ourselves, to believe that there is a divine plan unfolding even when we can't see it, and to surrender the need to control every little detail. Forcing things to happen can often lead to disappointment because our human understanding is limited. We see what's right in front of us, but we don't see the bigger picture. We push for doors to open that were never meant for us. We hold on to relationships, jobs, and situations that no longer serve us because we are afraid of what will happen if we let go. We chase after things that look good on the surface but may not be aligned with our true purpose. And when things don't work out the way we want, we feel defeated, as if we have failed. But faith teaches us that delays are not denials, that closed doors are sometimes divine protection, and that when things don't go according to our plan, it doesn't mean they aren't going according to a higher plan. There is a difference between effort and force. Effort means doing our part, taking steps forward, and being diligent in what we are called to do. Force, on the other hand, comes from a place of desperation, anxiety, and the fear that if we don't make something happen, it never will. When we live by faith, we shift from a place of force to a place of flow. We learn to move with divine timing instead of against it. We learn to trust that what is meant for us will not pass us by and that the right opportunities will come when we are ready for them. Faith allows us to release the burden of trying to figure everything out and instead lean into the guidance that is always available to us. One of the most difficult things for people to accept is the idea that sometimes doing less actually leads to more. Not in the sense of laziness or passivity, but in the sense of allowing things to unfold rather than trying to manipulate every detail. There are moments in life when we have done all we can do, and the only thing left is to trust. But instead of trusting, we keep pushing. We make more calls, send more emails, chase more opportunities, and try to force something into existence. And yet, the more we force, the more resistance we create. It's like trying to hold on to water with a clenched fist. The tighter we grip, the more it slips through our fingers. But when we release the need to control, when we relax and open our hands, we find that what is meant for us naturally flows in. Faith is about stepping back and allowing divine alignment to take place. It's about understanding that sometimes the things we want the most aren't the things that are best for us. It's about recognizing that just because something isn't happening now doesn't mean it won't happen later. When we let go of the pressure to control every detail, we create space for unexpected blessings to come in. We allow ourselves to be led instead of constantly trying to lead. We learn to recognize that the path to our greatest purpose isn't always the one we planned, but it is always the one that is right for us. Fear often keeps us in a place of force. The fear of failure, the fear of missing out, the fear of being left behind. We push and push because we are afraid that if we don't, nothing will happen. But faith teaches us the opposite. Faith teaches us that what is meant for us cannot be taken away. Faith teaches us that we don't have to chase what is already ours. Faith reminds us that when we align with divine wisdom, we no longer have to strive in exhaustion, because everything we need is already being orchestrated in ways we can't yet see. Many people turn to God only when they are in trouble, when they have exhausted all other options, and when life has become too overwhelming to handle on their own. They treat faith like a last resort rather than a daily foundation. When things are going well, it's easy to rely on personal strength, to feel like everything is under control, and to believe that success is solely the result of hard work and determination. But the moment challenges arise, the moment things don't go according to plan, suddenly there is a desperate search for divine intervention. People cry out, asking why things are happening the way they are, wondering why they feel lost and unsure. The truth is, God is not meant to be an emergency contact. Faith is not just a crisis response. It is meant to be a way of life, a daily alignment that brings peace, clarity, and purpose regardless of circumstances. When God is only included in the moments of struggle, life becomes a cycle of highs and lows, moments of control followed by moments of chaos. There is no consistency, no stability, only an ongoing pattern of seeking divine help when things go wrong and forgetting about faith when things go right. This kind of relationship with God is reactive rather than proactive. It's like only taking care of your health after getting sick, only checking the oil in your car after the engine has failed, or only putting on a life jacket after you've already fallen into the water. A relationship with God is meant to be a constant source of guidance, strength, and wisdom, not just a temporary fix for difficult situations. Starting the day with God changes everything. Instead of waking up and immediately being consumed by worries, responsibilities, and to-do lists, there is an opportunity to begin with a sense of peace and intention. Taking time each morning to pray, meditate, or simply acknowledge divine presence sets the tone for the entire day. It creates a foundation of faith rather than fear, trust rather than anxiety, and purpose rather than pressure. Too many people start their days already overwhelmed, immediately diving into social media, emails, and the noise of the world before they have even taken a moment to align themselves spiritually. They rush through their mornings, reacting to life rather than leading it, trying to catch up rather than being centered. But when God is placed first, the day flows differently. There is a sense of direction, a calmness in decision-making, and a confidence that no matter what happens, everything is unfolding as it should. Making daily alignment with God a habit does not mean life will be free of challenges. It does not mean there will never be obstacles, setbacks, or moments of difficulty. But it does mean that when those challenges come, there is already a foundation of faith to stand on. There is already a deep sense of trust that removes the need for panic, fear, or doubt. Instead of scrambling to find answers, there is already clarity. Instead of reacting in stress, there is the ability to move forward in peace. When people only seek God in moments of struggle, they lack the spiritual endurance to handle life's ups and downs with grace. They find themselves constantly questioning, constantly second-guessing, constantly feeling unsteady. But when faith is a daily practice, there is a stability that remains even in uncertain times. Alignment with God is about more than just prayer. It is about perspective. It is about shifting from a mindset of worry to a mindset of trust. It is about seeing life through the lens of faith rather than fear. It is about recognizing that every situation, whether good or bad, is an opportunity for growth, learning, and deeper connection. People often miss out on the beauty of life because they are too caught up in trying to control everything. They spend their days anxious about what might happen, frustrated about what didn't happen, and worried about what they cannot change. But faith brings a sense of surrender, a reminder that there is a greater plan unfolding even when it is not immediately visible. Living in daily alignment with God also brings clarity in decision-making. When faith is the foundation, choices are no longer driven by fear, pressure, or external expectations. There's a deeper understanding of what is truly important, a sense of wisdom that goes beyond human logic. Many people struggle with making decisions because they are overwhelmed by the opinions of others, paralyzed by the fear of making the wrong choice, or constantly second-guessing themselves. But when God is leading the way, decisions become clearer. There is no longer a need to chase validation or approval. There is no longer a need to stress over every possible outcome. There is simply a quiet confidence that the right path will always be revealed at the right time. A life led by faith is not one of passivity but one of intentionality. It does not mean sitting back and waiting